Greetings everyone, Dr. Kate, and I thought I would put together a little slideshow for you that might help in doing your preliminary search for sources and other kinds of materials related to your topic idea for your research proposal. Now, we have such a short period of time, just a few weeks really, that we probably should get on the ball here and start looking for what will be useful kinds of reference materials. So today I spent some time actually using a topic that was suggested by one of your fellow classmates. And let's get started. Now, the type of searching that we can do these days is so much easier than even just 20-25 years ago when I was doing my master's thesis. Unlike what I ended up doing, working with microfiche and going physically, of course, to the library itself, Reader's Guide to Periodicals. Some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with that. I'm searching, actually hand searching through various materials. You don't have to do that. Not that it may not be required at some point for you, but we don't really have to do that to get started. What we can do is use our friend, the internet, which certainly has its advantages. As we'll see, it can generate many hits or things that seem to be appropriate in just moments of time, microseconds. And given that, it will seem like this is a snap and you really have it made. Well, that's the good news of things. And moving on to what is the flip side of this research process. When you have as many hits as you'll see you can find, at least initially, there's no way anyone on earth can read all of these pieces of information. Some of the things that are appearing outwardly to be hits may not really even be relevant at all, and you'd be wasting your time to even spend a moment trying to find them or reading the entire article. Plus, maybe you're not really sure what kind of words to use to do a proper search, and therefore could very well be missing a lot of information. Now, I think what I've found over the years with folks is that they'll make a swipe at it, an attempt at looking for information, and then think, well, my work is done. And after really minutes of time, they believe they've exhausted all avenues. And it's funny to me because I look back on when I was doing my initial search for information for my master's thesis, and it was months and months of time, grunt work spent in the library to do that, and how, I guess, impatient folks are these days, I think, thanks to the internet, that they believe they've put in quite enough time in just a short period of time. So what I want to encourage is that you don't quit too soon, yet also that we don't spin our wheels wasting a lot of time that we don't need to do, especially given time such a precious commodity to us. Unfortunately, what can be the case is things you thought were a great idea, and in fact are a great idea, may very well have already been done by somebody else. So that's one of the reasons you want to search for what's gone on before you as a budding researcher yourself. I've even heard tales of folks who are writing their dissertations that have been approved and they're going along and suddenly find that someone has in fact done the same thing that they are attempting to do, which, depending on how ethical or not you are, may result in scrapping your idea and starting again, or if you're unethical, you maybe turn a blind eye to what you just uncovered as the exact thing that you were hoping to conduct for your own research. But we're not going to worry about that. However, we do need to be aware that there's folks out there that devote their lives to research. That's what they're trained to do. This is their life's work. So as we begin, we just need to, I guess, take that into account, that there's certainly going to be work done in the area you're interested in. So we need to find out what's happening in, so to speak. So what I did was take a look at the topic area of air traffic controllers, and we're going to go into the fatigue factor, which I know is a topic of interest for one of your classmates so far. So just doing a Google search, which is obviously pretty rudimentary, just putting in air traffic controller, you can see that there's 24 million hits. Is that correct? Yes. Well, guess what? We're not going to be taking a look at 24 million documents. And another difficulty with using the broadest possible sense of a search engine is that you have so many hits that are not at all what you really want to have. So we'll just assume going in this direction is not the way to be accomplishing what we need to this semester in a brief amount of time. So I'm adding the next keyword, and this is where you probably heard that Boolean. So we're putting and in there so that when we search for air traffic control and fatigue, it narrows to a mere 196,000 hits for that. However, again, can we possibly take a look at that many items, even if they're small? No. What do my students tend to do, especially at the undergrad level? They'll go through the first couple and call it a day and assume because they're at the top of the hit parade, so to speak, that they must be the most relevant and germane. And any of you that are into any kind of computer programming know there's ways you can build into your particular documents sort of the keywords to make its importance kind of go to the top as far as where it would appear in a search like this Google search. But in any event, we do see there's a couple things here. You can see the first has to do with some sort of air traffic controller story in 2007. The second, and this is interesting to me right off the bat as a researcher, they're talking about human factors for air traffic control specialists. One good thing is you see it's a PDF file, so you'll be able to see it in its entirety. You can see it's relatively lengthy, which is also a clue that it's actual research versus just some brief mention in a magazine or some other source. So in any event, you can see here we seem to be getting a little bit better. Now I added in this next slide USAF just to see, well, what would happen then, when we're trying to shape it more specifically toward the Air Force. Not that, however, you wouldn't want to look at other research that has been done on fatigue factors and air traffic controllers that isn't military based. So I just want to make that distinction. I'm just doing that here so that you can see the number of hits went down to 14,000, a little bit more than that. However, don't think, well, just because it's not the Air Force that it's irrelevant. It could very well be, especially as we're trying to, I think in this case, look at what are some of the variables or factors related to fatigue and I assume job performance, and that those are the sort of things we're interested in. And we just see here, for example, the first hit has to do with a study that is involving USAF controllers and so on. So that would seem to be very interesting. And fine. So here we are in. I had suggested to you in another email that you go into Google Scholar as a really quick way to take a look at what there might be out there that is of interest to you. So you can see the address scholar.google.com. Looks similar to Google. I clicked on the Advanced Scholar Search, which was on the page preceding. And then you can put in your various keywords and the like. You can also say you want it to be by particular authors, and you can put articles within a time frame if you want to. You can see here at the bottom it says to search for articles in particular subject areas. I tend to be more in the social science area. Sometimes I am in the biology, life science, environmental science, and my HIV related work. However, you can open it up, keep it broad, or you try to narrow it through that sort of an approach. So when I went into Google Scholar and I'm just saying, okay, I want the air traffic controller fatigue, I get the same result here, this first study that I already had noticed once. And I'm seeing some other. You can see now we're in different kinds of, it looks like academic sources. You can see the first hit here is from something called Aviation, Space and Environmental something. It sounds like a magazine or a journal. The second, Human Factors and Ergonomics, academic source, relatively old, but it's something to at least go on. Responses to changes in workload during simulated air traffic control. That certainly seems like it's in the direction, and you can see that's in biological psychology is the source for it, which is why I think it's probably good to keep it broad for many of your topics and not narrow it to a particular field, because often they are cross-disciplinary. Folks from all sorts of areas of walks of life or disciplines may have an interest in that topic. I just went quickly into EBSCOhost, which is one of the many search engines out there that you have access to. I typically use in this first selection here, Academic Search Premier, for many of the types of pieces of work that I do. However, what you'll see when you get into choosing a database in a search engine such as this, EBSCOhost, that there's quite a few. You could say you want to go through every possible database, or you can narrow it somewhat. Academic Search Premier is particularly good for the types of research topics that I normally do. Next, I just show that we can do a double search or multiple database search. And I just brought up one, which was that Air Force Times brief little article. And it's talking, and you can see here the abstract of this two-pager says they are talking about a research report that someone had done on Air Force and fatigue and factors related to that, and had actually presented this to lawmakers. So that could be very interesting. And the last sentence here says, light therapy can limit melatonin production and thus minimize fatigue. So, for whatever that's worth, now we're getting into physiology as a factor or a variable related to fatigue or controlling fatigue in this case. So it might be worth trying to find that piece of research if that's the direction you in fact want to go. Now when we're searching again, I'm still in EBSCOhost here. What else do we have? A lot of popular press, Wall Street Journal articles are the first two, and again, that could very well be something that you want to take a look at. Again, 4 sources that you could maybe dig out when you have those details, thanks to a Wall Street Journal article. This particular article, again, I just pulled it up to talk about. It says it was back September 23rd, 2009, that there was ratification, etc., with air traffic controllers and pilots and so on. Again, this is only going to give you a brief idea about it. Now you go find what did that actually say. What is the actual document saying, which I think would be relevant to research in this area. So it's just a quick overview, and I hope it's of some use to you to know that when you focus yourself into a particular area, it helps to refine your search and not just go crazy with too many hits. However, I can't really expect you to know, well, how should you narrow it and what kinds of words should you use. My best advice is go with your gut instinct. Find one good article that appears to be from a journal or an academic source or some sort of a official source that is relevant to your particular interest. And oftentimes they'll provide for you subject headings, keywords, something like that, that you can then say, okay, that I didn't put it that way. Okay, now let me try again using that article's keywords and search again. This is time consuming, as you will see, and it's really, now that once you kind of get your feet wet what's happening in a particular area or field, that you can create your research question. And I'm going to do another presentation just talking about that, which I'll post later.